Let's do this over again. Well, good morning. Good morning to you. Welcome once again to the Rude Boy Sound. I am the Rude Boy DJ Paul. You could see me down there up top. It's the Spurs sound off. And we are doing this for another edition in 2025. The first game, Newcastle. A little bit of mixed feelings there with the injuries. If you have watched my videos before, you know that I don't use the injuries as an excuse for how we are performing. I think we have a lot more problems than injury. It's a factor at the end of the day how everything eventually rolls out. But when you actually look at the the play, the 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 overall performances over time, the injuries just become a culmination of a lot of things that have gone wrong. And for me, it's a bunch of things, and I hate to start here, but I'm going to start here because this is what it has become, and I've laid it out before. And if you have never seen any of the previous videos, I'm not going to send you back to watch those videos. But what I will do is that I will try to get back into the things that I iterate before I get into this particular video. And so one of the things that you try to explain as far as what's happening with Spurs is that overarchingly, on the macro side of everything, Daniel Levy is responsible for everything that happens at Spurs. And if some of us want to say, even for the bad play, even for what Ange is doing, because he's the man who employs Ange. And one of the things that we want to also touch on is that I am not looking for an agreement with everyone who is going to watch the video. I'm not looking to change your minds about Ange leaving the club. I'm just saying, as a part of the ecosystem of Spurs, and I'm located in the United States, and sometimes, on Facebook, people will look at my, or fans, let me just say fans, because if you're commenting and you're in a Spurs chat or on a Spurs page, then I would want to think that you're a football fan. And so you find that those in Britain or elsewhere not too concerned where they're from, but it comes majorly from people who are in the United Kingdom. Is to say, "Oh, you have never been to a Spurs game." And it's like, okay, that's refreshing, and that's educated. You don't know anything about football because you're an American, and you try to explain, "I'm not an American," but that doesn't take away my knowledge from the football. I'm actually Jamaican, residing in the United States, and I've been following Spurs for this, I think, my 47th year of following the club, and so I've seen it all, and so you try to explain yourself out of that plastic bag that people want to put you into. And my knowledge of football just is not about just watching it on television. As a matter of fact, I think my knowledge of football is sometimes a detriment to how I watch the game. And so I take a very deep look at the football, too cryptic, not cryptic, but with a lot of skepticism about managers and how they play. If I was still coaching, so here's my introduction. If I was still coaching, then that kind of way of watching the game and looking at how uh, managers like Pep, and Ancelotti and all the other, great managers. I love Eddie Howe, how they set up their team and how they play based on situations. Arteta is a good manager, but I think he gets off wanting to look like a genius sometimes when it's just kiss, keep it simple, stupid, will work. And so, for that, but I still uh, know that tactically he's there. I think he just run into a once the Arsenal got good, he ran into the likes of Man United. I'm a Knicks fan. I was a Knicks. Not was. I'm still a Knicks fan, and the Knicks are on the rebound. I'm just gonna give you. Um, Sometimes our team can really stop another team from really progressing. And when the Knicks had a really good team in the 90s, here comes Michael Jordan and the Bulls. And so sometimes other teams get in the way of what was going on. Liverpool was good or is good, and what happened? They only managed to win one Premier League because of Man City. And when Man United was good, they won what 13 of the over a period of time. They and Chelsea came along. So sometimes there are teams that are on the bubble, right? I think when Spurs were good, right, and when the other teams were down, Leicester came through. And so in eras you have teams that rise to the occasion for one reason or another. And so you have managers who made great mistakes. We still, as Spurs fan, can go back and said, what if Mora, who was red hot, started ahead of Kane? What would the outcome be? We saw his magic over a 3 game spell, and so there was something to criticize about Pochettino in the end for his selection. And so as you look through the history, and I think even though Daniel Levy is not the best messenger, of his own causes and the things that he does, he said something that was really profound. He said that sometimes when you go out there and you think you find the right players, you just don't have the right manager. And sometimes you need the break on the luck for you to look good, for you to be successful. And it was really really profound that he actually said that. At the end of the day, that doesn't take away from Levy's mismanagement. That's a good line to look at. That's a good save for him, and I think he was talking about that in conjunction with, look, we had Pochettino before, and we have Joel, and we have Redknapp, and we see the kind of football that Spurs play, and so it because we never actually won as much as we should have. We had just the um the League Cup, and so he said, "What if we do something different?" And so he went to Conte and he went to Jose because they are the premium managers. They are the best at what they do, and it still did not work out. And so, in this iteration of project number 25, you I don't like using that word in association with Spurs, but 2025 iteration or 24-25 version of the club rebuilding, um, which I think I said before, there's no rebuilding actually going on because we did not have enough of the base and the platform to rebuild. So I think Ange came in with a project. But just getting back to where Levy fits into this whole thing. And so as a chairman, he's not going to give up the reign. And so I can have a conversation at the end and say, well, my conversation will say, then I really don't want Leave It to be there, if you're reading between the line. But I don't think it's fruitful to use every scenario to paint that picture. At the end, you should get it that he's not doing a good job. But if I'm going to have a conversation about the situation at the club, it's hard when you're looking at the man who you said that he's not good for the club, but you want a manager that is going to represent the club. And so you have this, I saw this word this morning, the dichotomy. The dichotomy, the dichotomy of trying to place things in its proper place, and so if you even go back and you said Daniel Levy, there is nothing right about Daniel Levy for Spurs. And that's false. That's absolutely false. We can put things in category and we can say this is what he does, but he doesn't do this well. And we can put that in category, right? And so when you look at the macro of Spurs, the big picture of Spurs, this is what Spurs is, or what they are. They are pretty much a conglomerate made up of different entities and doing other things other than the football. And no one talks about the shows and all the things and the other football, American football, and the concerts and all of that stuff that happens in the stadium. Us as football fans could not care less that the venue is being used for all of that. But besides that, besides generating the revenue, right? We don't think, and I think I'm speaking for most fans, we don't think that that revenue generated is going towards the football. And so it leaves a bad taste in your mouth that this is not about Spurs football. This is about an egotistic owner who is bent on filling the coffer and his pockets and for his shareholders and don't give two rats ass about the fans. And so you can make that argument, right? You can make that argument, and that will believe it in a nutshell, right? And you give him the kind of buck stops here. Doesn't matter what happened. If it goes well, it should be about time that something goes well. If it goes bad, it was always going to go bad because Levy is always there. And so we struggle with trying to decipher how do we put the blame in the bucket that it is supposed to? How do we look at professionals and say, well, you're not doing your job? How do we look at Scott Mum? Because, Levy brought him in. How do we look at Paratici, who is somewhere in the background? How do we look at, Yuan Lang, who has been successful elsewhere? And everything seems to go to shit once it gets to Spurs. These are accomplished people that we're talking about. Every single manager, right? I know Nuno in his own rights. We keep, saying that, Nuno was cast aside because he was not given a chance. And I think I made the comment that Nuno just happened to come at a time when we were coming from Pochettino. And then we were still in that mold that anybody who doesn't look like Pochettino, it was going to get a hard time from the fans. And I think Levy overreacted just the way, in my estimation, and a lot of fans maybe, because we know nothing about why he fired Josie. I know why he fired him in the big scheme of everything, but at the time that he fired him, I can't figure out what he could have done to Daniel Levy or the club, or what he could have said to have him fired a week before a finals. And so those are some of the things that set the club back when you have your review based on success, and failure. Those are the things that sticks out in your mind. Those are the things that keeps coming back, and everything that's there is always going to attach to Daniel Levy. Now, not because I don't get on here and every video that I do is about how wretched Daniel Levy is. It doesn't mean that I support him 100%. I will never support him 100% until I start seeing things start happening, until I start seeing that we need players on day one, and there's a player that fits the need, whether they come in and they fail or they succeed. I want to see the club start acting like a big club, because we are a big club, and I want to see us having player on the board. I don't have to know about it. It doesn't have to be out there in the internet sphere and got beaten up. What I want to see is that you make a decision that this is the guy that I want, and it's cost £50 million, and we're going to go out there and get him because that's a player that should be at Spurs. And you move on, right? Judge me later based on that. Right, this protracted, negotiating and £5 here and £10 here and terms here and deals there. Levy doesn't do buy clause. So I'm not sure what's taking, up the decision but the money, I know that when you set a certain precedent that you're not going to bust your budget, or this is where you're going to fit, and a player's going to look and say, no, I ain't playing for that. Then you move on. So what you have to do is accumulate more players that are willing to come and play, for 80 million, for $80,000 a week. And if you can get, 20 players at that, then you build up based on that. And then you have to win with it, because that's your method, that's your madness. But we're not doing that. And so even the latest in what we're looking at, everybody knows, and we go down the line. There's nothing wrong with signing a new goalkeeper, a young goalkeeper with talent, right? But the fact is that we have three goalkeepers that are just about the same age and coming up from the academy. So once again, you black the path of another player. I don't think Brennan Austin did too bad, and you could see that he can grow, right? Just the way you look at Bergval, and you don't think you need to go out there and get a number eight right now, because you have Bergval who can fit in that in a slot. I think someone said that, he has a little nastiness to him. And I think when you have a little nastiness to you, you can I saw him playing at the number six, and I was like, whoa, this kid is out of his mind, based on where he was going. But then you look at him playing at the number six, and that's putting a player in a position where he can succeed, because what happened is that when he was playing at the number six before, he was playing as a 4-1-2-3 at the number six position, which he got lost in it. You put him next to in a 4-2-1-3, and it looks so much better, because he was playing off the right side for most part. Then what will happen is that his game will grow. And so you expect that overall, that just like how you put players in position, you want the management, you want the chairman to put the club in a position where the success starts at the top. And even though you're going to have failures along the way, I personally never thought that paying 65 million or whatever we paid for Richarlison was a waste. In the climate that happened, and at the time that happened, and who was available, I think we could have gotten better. But based on how we were playing and how we still have Kane, I think across the board, Richarlison was the right fit being in the Premier League. It didn't work out. You sell him, you move on. So it doesn't stay there and fester and become a sore. So you move him on. You give him 2 years, whatever it is, cut your loss, you move on. We're holding on to assets that are not going to turn us anything. And that is where the criticism of Levy comes in. You're holding on to something that is not going to turn you much at the end of the day. We held on to Lo Celso, even though Lo Celso wasn't playing, he keeps injured, and then you end up giving him away for $15 million when he's probably you could have gotten a 30 for him when he was showing sign of everything. The same thing with Dyer. We go all the way back to Dyer when Man United wanted Dyer, and I was like, okay, sell him, please, sell him now, because even though Dyer had the comfort of Musa Dembele and Wanyama and all those players around him, and Toby Alderweireld and Jan behind him. It makes a player, because he was insulated. He had Walker and he has Rose. So you have a player who was average, right? Average Dyer, right? Was playing one of the best holding midfielder in the league, until he got up where people start talking about him as, is he the best, among the best. And so when you have a team around you, and I'm talking about the football itself in relation to the transactions that are happening, is that you want that kind of thing wherein you're insulated. And when Dyer got insulated with the likes of good players around him, he looks good. World beater at some point, right? And he was making the England, he was being penciled in as the holding midfielder for England, without a doubt. And so we're not seeing that kind of effort from the board, wherein, what, let's make this decision. It will work, or it may not work, but you move on. But we keep sitting on those decisions. When you go through, these long, drawn out trying to acquire players, trying to sell players, to squeeze every penny coming in and what's going out. It just gets to a point of being retarded, at some point, and so that irks the fans. And so when you start having more failures than success, it is just going to come right back to you. And that's how I look at Daniel Levy. I'm not going to skirt around that. But the point I'm making is that the time I spend here talking about Daniel Levy, I'm not going to do that in the next video. I'm not going to take um, Ange mistakes in a game and said that's Daniel Levy's fault. Because at the end of the day, the buck stops here. I can't take a manager's system. If he goes out there and he said he wants a front foot football coach, and he looked out and he saw, which I think he did, and he saw Ange, and he said, wow, that's the kind of football, that's the excitement that we want, and we're going to go out there and we're going to bring Ange in, which he did, right? And now you find out that Ange is just a gimmick because the I shouldn't say that. That's kind of, it's a bit harsh. The type of football that he wants to play gives you 70% of what you're really looking for. Front foot, attacking, exciting football. But is it winning football? And so for me and for others, that I find in chat rooms who are saying, what is it that you want? What is it that you want from Ange? And even when you spell it out, he said, okay, let's break it down. Let's look at it, right? Let's put Daniel Levy to the side. Let's put the players on one side, right? The quality of the players. Just put that to the side. Just look at how the manager treats the game. Look at how his impression and how his management style, how he adapts to the game itself on game day. We all don't see what happened in training. And I can tell you this. If this is what I'm seeing on match day, that's what's happening in training. And that's the only thing I can interpret. If I don't see certain things happening, I can say it doesn't exist in training. I have no other way to judge. I'm all the way in the United States. I'm not at the practice facility to see what they're doing. You get snips. We used to get snips of videos. I think maybe on the Spurs website. I don't subscribe to the Spurs website, so maybe that's why I'm not seeing it. I used to, and whatever happened, I'm not sure. But I don't see those training videos anymore. And sometimes I'll tell you what, I will be skeptical in this case. Sometimes when you have the PR side of the club, you get a lot of propaganda coming out, and so I rather look further than what the guy who doesn't want to upset the manager or the club by the contents that he's going to put out. So that's aside. Let's get back to Ange. And so when we start to look at how did we get here, right? Listen to what the manager is saying. Listen to what the chairman said. And you put the chairman off to the side. You can sit in one bucket. I already discussed the chairman. And so you start looking at Ange. And when you look at Ange, you said, what does Ange bring? Ange bring you attacking football. Okay, that's what you want. And so you get back to the culture, right, of and it's our system that Spurs fans are familiar with and what they want to see coming out of their football club. But then you get to the point wherein you start saying, okay, so 80% of the football is good, but we are being undone because of the other 20%, which is the defense. You don't see that kind of effort and that kind of shape and formation. Remember I told you that I did coach, and so I look at the game a little different when I'm looking at it. I'm looking to see how does my fullback come back, how does the center backs position by in conjunction with where my number 6 is, or my 6 is, depending if you're playing a 4-2-1-3 or a 4-1-2-3, you're going to have a central midfielder. Most of the time, if you're playing a 4-2-1-3, you're going to have a number 8, or if you're number 6, one of them is going to be more attacking than the other, or unless you're playing a strict defense where you're defending with 6, where they're going to hold in, and you have the number 10 or the number 8 in front of you going left to right. wherein you're just staying in because that's your job, and everybody move up in one accord. So pretty much you're not at you're attacking with about 4 to 5, and you're sitting back 6 or 5, depends on how you want to move it. But what is evident is that we are attacking pretty much with 8. And when you're attacking with 8, the fact is that you know we've been taken apart, with the way the fullbacks go up. And what we're saying, and what everyone is saying, is that address that part of it, because if you address how the fullbacks play, right, then you can address the rest of the things that are happening with the club and what are happening game wise, because that is where the weakness is. I don't think, and believe it or not, I don't think the quality of the players right now that we have should come in question. I really don't. I have not. For I criticize two players I really and truly criticize. I criticize Brennan Johnson for the lack of effort. I don't think he puts the effort in to he needs to take his game up at another level. Maybe that's just his demeanor. Sort of like a Tangai, flashes. He does something well, but not everything that you need from him. And so you don't see that effort from Johnson, even though it seemed like he's trying in his own right. But when you look at the effort that is coming from him, it's just not good enough. And Timo Werner, I just wish he never put another jersey on, right? And those are the two players that I actually criticize. Johnson not as much as Timo, and everybody's gonna ride the Timo Werner part. So I don't spend much time on that. If I have to come here and talk about Timo Werner, might as well I shut the site down. Might as well I stop doing this, because some things are not even worth discussing. As far Timo Werner, by the way, is not the reason why Spurs are where they are, and that is why I don't discuss Timo Werner. Is he helping the club? No, but he's not the reason. He's not the main reason why the club is faltering. Is he lifting his game to his pay grade? Absolutely not. But again, he is not the reason. There are other factors, loads of other factors why the club is where they are, and that comes back to the manager. And so what we have is, too often we can understand that when we're having injuries, but too often, even before we get to the point of injuries, players were playing out of position, right? I don't know what happened between him and Regulon. You could have wanted Regulon to go, but the fact that Regulon did not go was the time to act. Okay, he did not go, he's in the squad, right? And so you put Spence with Poro, and uh, you put Regulon with Udogi. And so, like I said, these are the things for me that I know some people are not going to agree with me, but managers have a certain amount of clout. And if you don't fit what he's doing, you should go. But in the interim, if you have a deficiency, and it's not like the player himself is crap, because he keeps playing, instead of bringing in a youngster, he keeps playing Werner, because Werner is on a high wage, right? So what is the difference if you're going to play Regulon with an eye that, you know what, it doesn't really fit me, but I'm going to put him on the market. I'm going to put him on the market. I'm going to put him out there, even though he doesn't have what I want from him per se with Udogi, he still can give me something, because he's good enough to play. And you didn't see it fit to put him behind Udogi. And now, so what happened is that you take Spence and you put Spence on the left. So now you start out with, out of not calibrating the team itself, you start to put in Spence on the left when he's a right fullback. And so you start with that, and so what happened now is that now you're using Gray to cover over there, and even times when Udogi wasn't playing, you didn't play Spence and you play Gray over there. So now you have a discovery period where you figure out, I think Gray can cover over there. So even when Paro wasn't playing, you're playing Gray at right back, Yugi doesn't play, you play Gray at left back. So what happened to Spence? And so you have the domino effects of that happening. You have a situation where you decided that, you know what, I'm going to bring Kulishevsky inside, right? And it worked for a bit because Kula blow hot and cold, right? It worked for a minute. And you know what happened? It displaces Madison because both of them really can't play together. Overall, they don't play well together. It pushes Madison to far left. And Madison, for me, needs that number 10 area where he can roam, he can do whatever it needs to do. And instead of, I would still suffer with Kulusevski as the winger, sit Brennan Johnson, let him cover Son, let him cover Kulusevski, right? Or pretty much don't play Kulusevski. At some point, you make it a platoon over there because the team is going to be better, even with Madison, going off the rails sometimes, which he does. But then again, he's the man that is going to keep the team and he's going to run the play because we don't have anyone who can do that. Kulusevski cannot run the team. He can be dynamic on the ball. He can have those big outlets. He's not the one who's going to put his foot on the ball and get everybody into their rightful place. And so when you have that, even at that juncture, you're playing somebody out of position and you're playing Madison out of position. The philosophy of why you're not playing Madison, because for me, and again, I'm putting my coaches back on. If I have Madison, who is not going to track back and he's not going to tackle, he's not going to do all of that. We have the same thing with Erickson, right? When Erickson was in number 10, you know what? He had Del Ali, right? Who was doing the same thing, but Del Ali was a much faster, and even though they moved Del Ali up the pitch, eventually I'm not sure why, and he lost his game. That's another story. Is that you have Dembele behind him. You have Wanyama behind him. Even when you have Bentaleb and all the players, Musa Sissoko. So you have all the people doing the dirty work behind Ericsson. So now I hear people complain about Ericsson at 35 that Ericsson can't tackle. He never tackled when he was 21. So how do you expect Ericsson to be tackling at 30, at whatever he is, 35 maybe, that's where he is. And so you have the same thing with Madison. You have the same with Madison. People are saying, go out there and get Eze. Have you seen Eze on the pitch? Eze walk all day. He's dynamic. But the thing with it is that when Eze is on, right, and you can't wait for your best player to be up to it. And so you have to wait for Eze to be up to it. And that's why I didn't like Zaha. Because they will give you a worldie and you don't see them again. Right? And so when you start talking about a player's consistency, the manager can be responsible for that. Because if you have Kulusevski next to Madison, and what you do with that as well is that then you bring the two fullbacks up in there. So now you not only do you have Kulusevski right next to Madison where he should never be, you have the two fullbacks next to both of them taking up the space. When the number 10 has the ball, if it's not going backwards or sideways, right, you shouldn't be looking at your fullback. Your fullback should never be an option for a pass going forward on the regular. And the way Spurs play and the way how Ange wants to play is that there are too many passes available. It is supposed to be as minimum as it is to get it to Solanke. And so when you look at it and you see what's going on, when Udoga comes up and he's getting 3-4 touches on one possession, and you see Porro coming up. Not Porro so much. I don't think Porro is as blatant and as pronounced coming inside as Udogi, because the minute we put the ball down on the 6-yard line, Udogi takes off. And that's the way he popped his hamstring. Now, am I going to blame the player? No, because it's cultural. It's ingrained. That's what you practice. That's what the manager wants. That's the style of football that he wants to play. And then what happens with that is that you're losing your shirt at the other end, right? You are losing your shirt at the other end because the same Udogi who is standing in the final third now leave your back line stretched out. And the manager is not going to make that adapting to what is happening to say, hey, I think if if I'm going to do that, and it's a simple fix. For the people who are telling me that I'm a Monday morning coach or in hindsight, it's a simple fix. If you're going to have your fullbacks or you want to play with your fullbacks, right, and you have an attacking number 8 or a number 10 who is playing on the same side, you don't need another fullback to be up in the attack. You have your winger, you have your number 8 or your number 10 who is going to play on the right side for argument's sake. You're playing in a 4-2-1, and you have a number 10 that is coming this side. So all you're going to do is that you're going to take your number 6, right, and put him on the same side where your number 10 is, and then you take your other number 6 who is more attacking and you put him on the other side so he can actually function over there. That is why, when you look at Kulusevski in the last game and Bergvall, they were pretty much occupying the same place, and that was not good because the left side was abandoned. So now what you could actually do, you don't need your fullback to go high. If I'm making the point, or you want to see the point that I'm making, because now what you're going to have is that you have your attacker, and now you can go 3 at the back, and then you could use your left-sided fullback to go up in the attack. So you still have that additional man in the attack. So you're good. If you're using only one fullback, then you're fine. But you can't use two because you don't have the coverage. What you're going to do with that, as you see with Spence being able to play as a right-sided center back, is that you push you're going to push your left-sided center back left. You're going to center one of your midfielder, and then you're going to hold the fullback as a right-sided center back, and you have 3 across the back. And what happened now is that you cover the entire back line. You're going to have your number 6 coming back. So now you have 4 in defense, just like that. You have 4 in defense, which you could actually play out of a quasi diamond, or 3 across the back, or in a T shape where you have 3 across the back and 1 in front. And so when you look at how the formation is and you look at the personnel, it's not the players. It's the shape of how the players are, because what happened is that when you push up the 2 fullbacks and you leave the 2 center backs by themselves, by nature and how Spurs play, everybody is involved in the attack. And I'm asking myself, why? You don't want to have so many passes that the ball does not progress. And that is what we're doing. We're having possession without progression. Because if you need 8 players to touch the ball on in the attack, it means the ball is sitting behind. Or if the ball is going too far forward, not the ball, but the players are going so far forward, then what's the sense? Because every time that a player goes up, you're taking somebody with you. The idea is to clear out, make space, so that the players or the defender is not going to mark man, but they're going to mark space or double up in the attack. And so you can pick your passes better because you know exactly what's going on. You can see exactly what's going on in front of you. And so if you start flooding the zone, all that's going to happen is that they're going to go one-on-one. So if you have which happens so much and so often, is that oftentimes really, really annoys me, is that you look at your doggy when he's in there and he's standing, and even when Reggie came on, some of that was happening because that's the way Spurs want to play. That's the way Ange play, that you have your fullback standing right next to your winger. So you push the winger inside, and then you have instead of giving him all that room, if the winger, right, is allowed to push inside, leave the space open, arrive late. But the minute the winger comes inside, the fullback is up there. Oftentimes the ball would be in the middle, and they're not more than 5 feet apart. One man can mark that space. You don't have to mark a man when you have another one standing next to him. All they got to do is stand in the space, and 2 men gets taken out. And that's exactly what you're seeing. And so if you only go, it's not even about, I don't want to play 3 at the back. You don't have to play 3 at the back. What you can do is play 3 at the back when you have the ball. Because what happened is that there's a big difference when going to a 3-4-3 formation. It's a big difference in going to a 3-4-3 shape in order to make sure that you are getting protection at the back. There are 2 different ways of doing it. And I might say that I'm not copying what Pep is doing, but that's how Pep plays. I know he's struggling now, so people are gonna say, well, they are struggling. They are struggling for different reasons. They're not struggling because of their shape. They're just struggling because the players are just, they're going through a bad patch. But he will figure it out because his system is not going to change. He has a solid system and a solid base. So when you look at Pep putting a 4-1-2-3 or 4-3-3 out there, and when you have the ball, you see Walker sitting in, you see Diaz sitting in, and then you have maybe a Kanji or whoever it is, a third defender, or even Stones. Stones they do it different. Stones will move up, Walker will come inside. So you still have three across the back. And that's the important thing. And then you have Roger in there. When Stones go join him, Stones and Rodri, that's a lot of defense that you have there. Even doesn't look like defense, but what it does is make your midfield stronger. And that's why Roger looks so good, because Roger have people around him that's going to take off the burden. Now, the others don't have Rodri around them to take off the burden because Rodri is good already. Van Dijk is not good all by himself. Remember that. Van Dijk is not good all by himself. Saliba is not good all by himself. You need the Gabriels to be good. You need the Akanji for Diaz to be good. You need, whoever is next to Van Dijk. When Matip was there, Matip was doing all the dirty work, and Van Dijk was just sweeping up everything behind him. You need that second player to be good. And so even with Spurs and Van de Ven, you need Van de Ven to be there so Romero can look good, and vice versa, right? And so we don't see that. We're not seeing the difference on the defense. Number one, the ball distribution for the front line. That's how we score a lot of goals, and that's his philosophy. And people will point to that and say that's the most important thing to score. No, but what happened when you're not scoring is that you can't lose when you're not scoring in bunches. You have to be able to defend what you have. You cannot have this feeling as a club. You cannot have this feeling as a team that even when I score, I have to score again. I'm not going to make anything stick. And that's a problem because when you get to the knockout, which we are going to do, you see against Man United, what happened? We have to keep on scoring because we make so many mistakes. And so if we go up, not if, but when we go up against Liverpool, right? This is just a hypothetical scenario. Say you're up against Liverpool and you're up 2-0, right? And you're leading the first leg 2-0. Liverpool will never feel like they're out of the game going into the second leg. They are going to feel that they can get in there and score 3 goals and beat you outright because the defense is that bad. If you're on a roll and if you take your chances, right, which we never generally do later in the games, we usually do that early. And so even when we score early, it is not supposed to be that the other team feel like they have a chance. They should never feel like they have a chance when you score. Even though, I don't want to, say too much about Arsenal and other teams. When you look at other teams play, and I watch a lot of Premier League. I watch a whole lot of Premier League. And when the top teams play, when Liverpool score, when Arsenal score, I mean, you're going to get some back. When Newcastle score, you don't see that panic. You don't see team feeling like, okay, let's dust it off and go get one. No, there's not that feeling in the stands either. When those teams score, even with City, when City was going, City makes you feel like, if they're down, they're going to come back. And if they're up, you don't have a chance. We have to get to that point where in that side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, from midfield down, right, to the goalkeeper, makes you feel like that's your only hope of winning a game. And we're not there yet. We are at the point wherein we are saying that scoring as many as we can, often and in bunches, is what's going to give us, wins. That's where the 3 points are going to come from. And that's not happening with the with the mismanagement and the in-game management, of how we play. But even if you want to call it in-game mismanagement, that's what you walk out of the dressing room with. I don't see the tactical nous. I don't see wherein there's anything tactical that's going on from the minute we take the pitch. I just think we come out and we play on the instructions that come out of the dressing room. I don't see the changes. I don't see, like, you know what? We are going to stop this thing. I don't see we up two and decided, you know what? I'm going to make this change. I'm going to pull my fullbacks. I'm going to go straight to my center backs. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring on two holding midfielders, and I'm going to stick them right in front of my defense and beat me, catch me if you can. That's how you play a knockout game. You know what? I want to have a striker up there, but guess what? I don't need a striker right now. I don't need a winger right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick three midfielders and a defender in there, or a defender in between my two midfielders, and said, look, we're not going anywhere. Those goals that we score, or that one goal that we score, is going to stick. And you saw that even against Wolves, we're up 2-1, right? And when you look at it, right, you have to say we're on a bad patch. The third goal was never going to help you. You're winning the game. And if you keep relying on scoring the third goal all the time, you're going to get breached, because the way we play, we're always exposed looking for that goal. And so until we start respect the one that's on the board, to the point where we're going to defend it, I'm not saying pull the handbrake up, as some people might assume that's what I'm saying. If you know anything about football, and if you want to talk about football, don't bring that nonsense to me. Don't bring that nonsense that I want Conte ball and I want Jose ball. I don't want their ball. What I want is the kind of defense that they're able to play, right? Not part the bus, but at least play a semblance of defense when you're defending what's on the board, where you can look and you can see a defensive shape and say, this is the intent, that is the intent. This is what we're doing, this is what we're not doing. And what we're not doing is that we're not defending our back line, because more than half the times, once the play breaks down, is that we're all facing our own goal. The two center backs are facing their own goal, the full backs are too high up, and the midfield is nowhere to be found. That can't be a recipe for success. And so when you talk about that, right? You're going to tell me, oh, Ange doesn't have the players. You don't need players to do it. You can go and get 12 kids from the academy and show them how to play in a shape, and they will execute it. So don't tell me that he doesn't have the players. That's an excuse. Don't blame Levy for that. You can't turn around and say that's Daniel Levy. No, the manager is inept. And when you look at it and you look at what he's giving you, right? You have to look at the game. You have to look at Saturday. You have to look at Sunday. What is he doing on the pitch? You can prove that Levy is no good. You can prove that Levy is not giving you the quality that you need. But if you're doing what you're doing, you're not making a point for yourself. You're not making a case for yourself. If you're going to play this garbage every week, wherein you're going to have all these players out of possession and you're going to blame it on injuries. Injuries are happening because players are being put in the wrong position, out of position, giving too much, more than they should on certain occasions. There's no need for your fullbacks to be so high. And if you just do that for a couple of games and see how it works. You know what? I tried it. Let me use these 4 games. Let me use these whatever games and try this. You don't see that. And come back and say, well, I tried it, didn't work. I'm going back to what I was doing. You don't see that from the manager. You don't see that from the manager, which is a crying shame. So don't tell me that what you see on the pitch, you're going to say, oh, Daniel Levy. I'm getting worked up, so I think I'm going to leave it right there. This is 20 minutes too long. But the point I'm trying to make overall is that you have to put things in perspective. I am not critical of the players. I think the players are giving everything that they can, because you don't see surrender in the players. I think they're giving everything that they have based on what they're asked to do. I think also that based on what this manager wanted to do coming out of camp, I think he has gotten what he has asked for. And right now, if I might say it, while I would say Levy is not a good football man, I think with what the manager has said, what has come from the manager's mouth himself, I am saying that he got what he wanted. This is just not working out. Am I an Android guy? I'm getting very, very close to it. But I know it's going to be there. And I say it, and I'm going to go on the record and say it again. As long as we're in the Europa League, he's going to be here. As long as we're in the Carabao Cup, he's going to be here. As long as he's in the FA Cup, he's going to be here. But if this continues, I don't think he will be here past February. That's my take. I don't care what you say about Daniel Levy. I don't care whether he's at fault. We cannot, should not, and we should not be fighting. We should never be fighting to not be relegated. We should be closer to top six than we are from the bottom of the table. This club is too big for that. And so the splitting the blame, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to assign it where it is supposed to. And right now, for what the manager asked for and for what he got, I think he should be doing a better job. I think he's too stubborn. I think he's unchangeable. I think he's unadaptable. I think he's full of himself. And I don't think he is going to change. I really and truly don't think he's going to change because he has that in him and he has shown it that he's not going to. And therefore, you can sit and watch the fruit rot on the stem. You got to pick it. And in this case, I think I'm very close to saying that. But the caveat is, because we're still in the cups, I don't think he's going anywhere. And that's my Sunday rant for you. I'm the Rude Boy DJ Paul for another edition of the Spurs Sound Off. Happy Sunday, y'all.